Welcome back to the Women's Bar Association of Illinois. We had our first segment with Susana Meza, who is the Vice President of Marketing for Wintrust Financial Corporation. It was a great discussion, and she had so much information to give, we had to do a second part to it. So we're going to talk to her some more, and I'm going to have Judge Jessica O'Brien ask questions first.
Well, thank you for having me back.
You're welcome.
Welcome back. Susana, when in our first show we had talked about the different partnerships that Wintrust would enter into with different communities or different companies. When it comes to communities, how do you identify the communities that Wintrust would like to invest in?
Everyone. All of them? Right. All of them. Because we're a bank. I mean, we have products and services from your kid's savings account all the way to trusts and investments and planning for the growth of your family. So it's everyone.
I love the concept that Wintrust wants to be Chicago's bank.
Yes.
What do you have specific plans on how you accomplish that? I mean, it seems to me that you're really there.
I think so. And thank you for saying that.
No, I mean,
think
like I said, I see your name of the your bank everywhere.
I think one of the strategies at the beginning was primarily my focus of my job of getting us closer to certain groups. Let's just use groups because they're all different nature, but groups to really serve the community. But then last year we really went full force or full throttle on aligning ourselves with the 2 baseball teams in Chicago. So I think that way we weren't, playing up to favorites. It's just serving the communities, but north and south. And if we're Chicago's bank, what better way to engage brand awareness?
Are you also sponsor Cubs?
Yes. So we're both. and that's why we put our Cubs checking, our White Sox checking with the wintrust.com/you decide. You can decide as a consumer which one you wanted to root for that aligns with your, whoever you're a fan of. But I think that was a tactic, I would say, because you're right, we're there, but that was a tactic to really align ourselves with those sports teams to let the masses know we're here and we're Chicago's bank.
Well, Chicago is a big sports city, so that was a very smart move, I think, on your part, right?
Well thanks to our CFO.
Is there any other vision that you'd like to share with us as far as your bank is concerned?
In the vein of serving communities, one thing that we're very, very vocal about is whatever organization we align ourselves with, we are very, very proud to support them. We encourage their work and we celebrate it. So wherever we can, we'll support, encourage, and celebrate. And that comes in many different forms. But really, it's about supporting those groups, either where people seek services from or where those that are more fortunate and more affluent, they donate back. And then making sure that they align with their goals.
Now, as far as when you talked about communities, we obviously, Chicago is very divided it's very diverse, but really it's divided by almost by race, don't you think? There's Chinatown, there's...
So we're not in all of those communities, even though we would like to be. But you are right, we are very, very active in the Chinese community, for example. We're very active in the Indian community.
Well, that's interesting that you should mention the Asian community, because I don't know if you've heard of this statistics that was in the Tribune last year, that in 2045, Asian Americans are supposed to surpass it's going to be the highest minority group in the country. So past the Hispanics as well. So that's in 2045, and it's growing, and it's growing, and it's growing. So that's an interesting concept.
Yeah. And we have to be keen on those changes. It's not that even the landscape of Chicago is going to change. Right. It's that it's changed. Right. So we better be paying attention to those communities and seeing, some of them have very, intricate circles, very insular. So how do we break through too? Because here comes an institution that, quite frankly, other institutions have tried to go after before. Going after in the sense of for different purposes. Ours is a very genuine purpose. We're here to serve. So we're active in the Indian community, Chinese, the Latino community, and the Black community. Those are, 4 communities that we care about. We care about all of them, but we really, really laser focused and make sure that we're serving them the right way.
Okay. Well, Our theme this year is Leave No Woman Behind, Empowering Through Leadership. So as far as diversity and inclusion are concerned, the Women's Bar is very proud of the things that we do in order to, in furtherance of those very important concepts. And our membership too is comprised of very diverse communities. So we're glad that you are a partner of our organization. But I want to switch to leadership ideas with you, because clearly you hold a very high position, and really one that many young people, not just attorneys, would like to emulate you and follow your footsteps.
Yes. So before we talk about Ms. Meza's footsteps, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and find out about those big footprints you're going to be laying out. Thank you.
To Maddie, congrats on paying off all those student loans.
Finally, right?
How'd you manage that anyway?
I started tracking my spending, changed a couple of habits.
Wow, I'm kind of living paycheck to paycheck right now. I don't even know how I'm doing it.
Well, have you tried saving a little?
I want to, but where's that money gonna come from? Bill collectors, they're the worst. Am I right?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind.
Not home.
Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
Welcome back, and we're still talking to Susana Meza, the first Latina to be Vice President of Marketing for Wintrust Financial Corporation. And we were talking about leadership, but we're going to shift a little bit and return back to leadership. And my question to Susana is, you've talked about communities, and I hear the concept of community development. Can you explain how that fits into Wintrust's strategy?
Sure. So we have our values and our strategic goals, and make sure that our strategic goals align with our values. But at the end of the day, it's understanding which communities are out there, which community groups, and those groups can take on many iterations, I would say, whether they're chambers, professional associations, not-for-profits, and then they serve a myriad of audiences. But it's really understanding who's playing in that space, who's doing a great job of it, because there's a lot of other folks out there, right? And then who can we really align our goals with and say, okay, this is what your audience needs, this is what your membership base, constituents, whatever the right term, depending on the organization is, here's what they need, here's where we could align ourselves in the expertise, programming, thought leadership, products, services. So it's what I get excited about this, obviously, but it's an extensive exercise. It's not just, sponsoring things that community organizations are doing for the sake of community development. It's what do you need? What do you need from us, and what do we need from you? So it's a nice partnership.
Oh, that sounds great. And so is that a shift in the strategy? Is that it started with you and you just keeping it going?
It's a shift in the strategy in the sense that in the early days of what we were calling at the time outreach, nobody knew who Wintrust was.
Okay.
They did know, but even in stark contrast, when I was saying it in 2002, it's like, who's Wintrust? But really, in the start of reaching out to communities, people still didn't know. So we did need to spend some time in the awareness circles, and that can take on other looks. But now, yes, you're right, it is a shift in strategy to really understand who do we want to be involved with.
Okay. Now you said support, encourage, and what was the third thing? Connect?
So we want to support those organizations and their audience.
Okay.
We encourage their work.
Okay.
And whenever we can, we want to celebrate it. Similar
Celebrate.
to the
I knew it was a
Women's
C.
Bar Association. Right.
I like that. That's
Support,
a
encourage,
great.
and celebrate, because that's what it's all
It's
about.
very wholesome and very connected to people. That sounds
Yeah.
great.
And our entire staff, everyone at Wintrust.
Excellent.
It's a team approach.
That's good. Oh,
Is
that's very good.
Wintrust based, is that a last name?
No.
It just occurred to me.
Wintrust. Yes, the words Wintrust. Yes, when you just said that, I clicked with you and it made sense. Oh, that's great. And you were going to
it's in the
ask
name of our
Susana some more questions.
Well, I was more curious about your position. To me, it always fascinates me how people get to where they are. So you started when you got out of college. This was your first job, right?
I was at an agency.
You had an internship there, and
then
then
they hired me.
Right.
And then I would eventually bring in clients because I was paired up with the business development VP at the agency.
Okay.
But then the market went south. I started looking for, my next move, and then applied at Wintrust. But when I started there, it was growing the banks. two of them.
I see.
Two of our main banks.
What
So,
was your first position with this company?
marketing manager in
Okay.
2002. I started there, August 16th,
And then
2002.
from
Marketing
marketing manager.
senior marketing manager.
Okay.
Now you're putting me to the test. I'm forgetting what's on my LinkedIn.
Marketing coordinator.
Yeah, and then marketing supervisor. So
Right.
with a growing company,
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of, navigating the titles there. So, but the work changed.
Okay.
The titles might
more
have been a little goofy.
responsibilities.
But yeah,
Okay.
more responsibilities. In 2011, so I report to the chief marketing officer.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2011, there was more work to be done on the community side. And quite frankly, he held on to some of those relationships and he said, hey, I need your help. There's such and such organizations out there. Let's start working at them together and joint efforts. Find out what we can get, like we said, what do they need? What do we need? And merge the two ideas.
And so you were promoted
then-
to your position now.
Correct. And then
Okay.
there was no playbook, and that's the funny thing. And I think I do commend him for not, I did send him an email recently for not micromanaging. He sets a vision and a strategy, and there's no playbook, nothing happens first, second, or third. Here, do this, do that. It's just,
No job description. You can do whatever you want. That's the best kind of job.
And it's succeeding, apparently.
it's get closer to the communities. So we had a roster of organizations, and then it evolved into Wintrust is growing. Wintrust is here to serve the community. What are the communities? And then we talked about which ones we want to focus on. And then it's navigating those circles. And a lot of the days I've spent connecting to those groups.
How long have you been in that position?
5 years.
5 years. Okay, 5
Yeah,
years.
5 years.
That's a long time, and of course
I
you.
know.
I'm just,
But it seems like it was yesterday, really.
Maybe
it really
because-
started in 2011.
maybe because
with
you
this
love
focus.
your job.
I do.
It flies.
Oh my gosh.
But,
I'm almost on the
um,
verge of a working addict.
But I'm curious though, what do you think are your key ingredients to your success?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. As it relates to the financial services, when you were asking me something about how do you start there, I remember in the early days, I decided you have to immerse yourself in the trade industry of financial services. What's the lingo? What does everything mean? Subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, subscribe to Cranes. If you're in a meeting and you hear a term, write it down. So I think in the early days, first it's immerse yourself first to know what it's all about.
It's almost like learning a whole new language.
For
It
sure,
is,
of course.
Yeah, and then there's other stuff that I could definitely share with you as it relates to
Okay.
Hard work,
So, yeah,
I'm
we have-
sure.
hard work.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
there's a lot. Yeah.
Oh, of course there is. So we're talking about leadership, and we'll continue to do so after we take our break, ladies, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
I know. All your friends are buying cool condos now. They're throwing weekend rooftop wine parties. That doesn't impress anybody. But you know what does? A nice Chateau de savings account. So I thought I could make the house a little cooler, and then you and your friends could save some money and come on over here and get turned whenever you want. Hit it, Ronald. Hit it. It's a red button. Hi! Huh? Oh, doggone it. Ronald, the TV's doing the thing again. Saving is easier than you think. Start now at feedthepig.org. Feed the pig.
We've been talking with Susana Meza from the Wintrust Company. She is the Vice President of Marketing. And when we finished our last segment, we were talking about leadership in general, as well as how she got to where she is now, because she's in a very important spot, and she's spreading the wealth of Wintrust. So we can continue along those veins. Jessica?
Oh, yeah, we left it off on what did I do in the early days to find out, or be more financially savvy with the financial know-how, and it was...
Well, how you became successful is what I want to know.
Oh, that's what you want to
Your journey to becoming successful, because obviously we have viewers, I'm sure, might be wondering how to get there. So you mentioned immersing yourself in whatever industry you're trying to get into.
Yes.
Learned your lingo, and then the second part was the second
Really,
hard work.
surround yourself, hard work and
Right.
dedication.
Okay.
Surround yourself with either the workshops, the seminars, the conferences of those who are being showcased for the seat that you want to occupy one day, for the seat that you want to sit in. So for me, it would be the Chief Marketing Officer conferences. So if I have a chance, and my boss has done this quite frequently, if he's invited to a panel, I'll go, and he invites me. But to hear what those chief marketing officers are saying, how they ask questions, how they present themselves, that's just good, input and knowledge that
Good
we have to
practice,
have.
too.
Yeah, it's good practice. So yeah, surround yourself with those opportunities. And the other thing was your internal and external brand. Everybody has one, and because perceptions are reality, and especially for women. And then you're talking about minorities. So how are you perceived? And be really honest with yourself, because if you use certain terms or certain language, you have the power to change people's perception. You just have to know how to do it and when to plug it in. So find out, what is your external brand, how are you viewed, and what is your internal brand, and are you happy with it? Is that something that's going to take you to the next level?
How do you
Does
know
that make sense?
though? No, that makes sense. I think it sounds great, but
You have to be really, honest with yourself. If there's something lacking, beef it up. Find out what you're lacking. If there's something that you're maybe too aggressive on, then pull back when appropriate.
But
Just
how would you know that you're being too
And then
aggressive?
you have like your people that, at least some folks, whether it's a mentor, some advisors,
Okay.
people you trust, gather all of that feedback from your family, who's going to be really honest, hopefully to a spouse, a partner, people that you trust. And
I read once before that the best leaders are those that are able to see themselves outside of themselves. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's almost like they're
It's
always
hard, but-
introspective,
Right.
looking in, like, what am I doing wrong? How can I improve?
Right.
But in terms of the branding, though, like, when you don't really know much about branding, like, how do you know that
That's
you're
true.
doing
If you
something
don't know
wrong?
much about branding, I would say, what adjectives describe you? And are those adjectives in line with your career? And really, we're all good about advocating on behalf of someone else, I think. And we're all good about criticizing someone else. So if you looked at that and say, okay, I'm going to give advice to Susana, who's doing this today, what is that? Because if you think about that, I know it's kind of like an out-of-body experience.
Right.
But if you think about that, then you'll be more honest with yourself.
In addition to also being honest with yourself, and we, as women, we
Mhm.
also have this challenge of having to do something differently because, as you say, there's that implicit bias and what is it called, the unconscious bias out there. When you go to the communities, people react to women differently than men. That's alive and well. That's just the way it is. But then, how do you know how to act like how to act?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
in different industries.
No, it's hard. I think you have to come at it as a common goal. What is that group, person, leader trying to achieve? And if we could see eye to eye on that and share that.
So, I'd be curious, like, when you go into the communities, have you had an experience where it was a challenge first, and how did you overturn it?
Oh,
I'm
sure.
putting you on the spot.
I know. I have many, but I don't know which ones I could share.
Yeah, like just one example where, maybe the person that you met, because you're a woman, had this different attitude towards you, but then
Right.
you had the knowledge of how to turn it around. How did you do that?
In one community, because of the cultural and religious aspects that they respect, and we should respect as well, and we do, I haven't had my hand shaken. And at the end of the day, I'm the one that would decide, what are we going to do with the organization? So I haven't had my hand shaken. There's been no eye contact. But it's kind of disarming when I do say, hey, we're going to do this and this, and that, like key terms that they celebrate.
Interesting.
And then they're like, oh, okay. And there's been other situations where I've been in a boardroom setting, and because of the nature of Chicago, and you alluded to it earlier, of how divided we are, they're kind of apprehensive. Oh, here comes so-and-so from such and such company. Oh, they sent a woman. Oh, they sent a Latina. And I haven't felt it that much, but in this one particular instance, they're like, did they send her because she's going to talk to us? And where's the real decision maker? Because that person's either going to come, meeting number 2 or meeting number 3. And they were very inquisitive. They were saying, what are you doing in the community? Are you really here to stay? There was very leading questions that, got at that. Are you here to stay? They didn't ask that, but they said, well, what are you doing for us?
Yeah. Well, if I did say that Chicago is divided, I misspoke. What I meant was that we're comprised of neighborhoods of different cultures. And that's interesting that you would talk about cultures too, because I know for a fact that in some Asian communities where, they don't even look at you, they don't want you to, they wear the burqa and all that, so for women. So definitely I see that. But maybe that's one of the, at least from listening to you, that it's cultural education that people need to engage in order to effectively negotiate or communicate with the other people or other communities.
Oh yeah, you have to be really sensitive and see where they're coming from. Because a lot of times I don't blame them where they're coming from. They're asking certain things or their nonverbal communication is of a certain way because of things that happened. So I think when we come in, it's to be very sensitive about that, to make sure that we're arriving to help them and to achieve our goals.
So did you learn those skills through your degree in marketing, or just being experienced in what you learn, or do you actually end up going to sessions or classes to learn these kind of skills?
Right. I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Some of the nonverbal is taken from cues of just being immersed in it, right?
Right.
And being plugged in with our bankers and relationship managers that really are already of that background. So it's coming together and saying, and this is not us shooting from the hip. If we're going to serve a community, we're going to do it right. So first, there's going to be dialogue with key leaders or our internal folks to how do we do it, and then execute. It's not just going, feet first.
Very good.
Any final advice to our viewers? They may be young, and
I would say, gosh, look to us for a lot of our programs and advice and education, whether it's for families, the consumer, the kids. But really, I think as a woman, as you were asking me earlier before in terms of leadership, it's identify yourself as the problem that you have the ability to solve and relate that to your career. What is the problem and why are you the solution? And sell yourself and your capabilities in that way. And you're going to go that much further.
That's excellent. I like that concept. Thank you so much for coming to our
thank
show.
you for inviting
It's been
me.
quite enjoyable. We've learned a lot. We appreciate it. Well, thank you for tuning in to the Women's Bar Association of Illinois Cable Show. Our guest this evening has been Susana Meza, the Vice President of Marketing for Wintrust Financial Corporation. She is the first Latina to hold that position, and as she's indicated, she's doing a lot of leading and serving the community, so we really appreciate that. And the Women's Bar Association's theme of Leave No Woman Behind, Empowering Through Leadership, has been definitely stamped by Susana Meza, and we really appreciate her coming in and singing. So we expect for you to see our next show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
thank you.